items. This meeting is being televised live on Charter Channel 180 and AT&T U-verse Channel 99, and will rebroadcast every Thursday at 7 o'clock p.m. and is available by video on demand on the county website. Now would be a good time to turn off your cell phones. If you wish to speak, you would need to fill out a public hearing speaking card. We will allot 10 minutes for those in favor of a case and 10 minutes for those in opposition of the case. And for example, if 10 people wish to speak, they all share the 10-minute slot and so forth. Please address the board when you come up to speak and not the audience. At this time, we'll have the Invocation Pledge by Alton Head.
Let us pray. Father, we would like to thank you tonight and ask that you would give us the wisdom and knowledge and understanding to be able to do the will of these people and that we will make the right decision. We pray in your Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen. Let us pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Head. All right, we call this meeting to order. At this time, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
DeLandre Nelson made a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Larry Babb. All those in favor indicate by raising your hand. Okay. Agenda has passed. Motion has passed. At this time, we'll have election of officers. I'm going to open up for nominations for chairman of the ZAB board. Yes.
I make a motion that we elect Vicki Consiglio.
Okay, I have a nomination for Vicki Consiglio for chairman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion carried. Okay, we have nominations for vice chairman. Do we have any motion for vice chairman?
I make a motion to nominate DeLandre Nelson as vice chairman.
Okay, we have a motion to elect DeLandre Nelson as vice chairman. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. We have nomination for secretary. Any nominations for secretary?
Yes, I would like to nominate Dante Gibbs for secretary.
Okay, we have a nomination for Dante Gibbs as secretary. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, this time we need approval of the minutes from the November 13th, 2014 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Sandy Nesbitt makes a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jim Risher. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. At this time, we'll have comments from the staff. Any staff comments?
We would just like to congratulate all of the reappointed zoning advisory board members.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so very much. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the rest of the agenda items. So if staff can call the first case.
The first case is VR-14-11. Lisa and Greg Campbell of Mcdonough, Georgia request a variance from development regulations for property located at 3456 South Bay Drive in Land Lot 8 of the 6th District. The request is to allow the development of a single-family residence, and it is located in Commission District 5, and Mr. Tyler McSwain will be presenting.
All right. Good evening, Lady Chairman and board members. Thank you. The subject property is currently zoned RA, residential agricultural. According to our records, there are no zoning conditions attached to the subject property. The variance was applied for a reduction of the required 175-foot lot width requirement for the RA zoning district. The subject property is very narrow. As you can see on the projected map. And the property is also currently vacant. With the property being narrow, it does not meet the width requirements set forth in the Unified Land Development Code. The subject property meets every development standard within the RA zoning district except the width requirement. The applicant is proposing an estimated 1,500 square foot building on the lot. This building, which will serve as the primary dwelling unit. Given the size of the structure, it would be hard to place the building near the rear of the lot, as the rear is covered by a floodplain. According to this aerial, if you may look, it may not be as clear, but we're trying. The property sits right off of a community which is located near Lake Spivey, and the property would have water access towards the rear of the property, which would be part of a floodplain. The variance, if approved, will grant the applicant to move the structure away from the floodplain and closer to the road, which will align the structure with the neighboring homes east and west of the property. Therefore, conserving the consistent distances for the homes along South Bay Drive. And I want to also add a comment that the homes around the community are various from different square footage of houses from 1,500 to 7,000 square feet. With this information stated before you, staff recommends approval of the request, and I'll answer any questions you may have for me.
Any questions from the board members for staff at this time?
Yes, I have one question for staff, and this kind of came to me a little late, but what's the average distance from house to house? Would you have any idea? And if you don't, I can understand, because it just came to mind on my part.
Okay. The average, all we can really quote at this time is the ULDC standards for front setbacks, which is 50 feet for a new subdivision requiring new roads. And if not on the main road, then it is 75. So every house on that South Bay Drive would be 50, at least 50.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions from board members for staff?
Yes, I know we got the information about the average square footage in the area. The adjacent homes, or is there any information on the adjacent homes?
On the adjacent homes, the property to the west is approximately 3,464 square feet in size. East of the property is 5,308 square feet, and usually the consistency around the water properties they're larger houses closer to the water that pretty much look like it was planned out. But there are smaller houses along that South Bay Drive.
Okay. And this has always been a vacant lot, correct?
I'm sorry?
This has always been a vacant lot?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the board members for staff? Okay, I would like to ask the applicant to please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Greg Campbell, 835 Cog Hill, Mcdonough, Georgia. Good evening.
At this time, would you like to add anything to what staff has brought forward to us?
No, I think just kind of some clarification on our part. The property width at the street is 150 feet. At the lake, it's about 200 feet. So with that setback being 175, where the setback starts, it pushes us about 350 feet away from the street to start building. That's where it puts us in the floodplain there. So what we're asking is to move that back toward the road and use some of that 300 feet of really treat area right now that we would use for the home.
Okay. Does any of the board have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, now, in terms of your new construction, what's the average distance from adjacent properties?
So I would say we're probably 100 feet either direction, 200 feet probably toward the east side from the home, and at least 150 feet to the west.
Okay. Now, would this property be used for primary resident, or is it a?
No, it'd be a lake property for us, lake residence. We currently reside in Eagles Landing.
Okay.
And so that's the size of the house is befitting what the use is going to be.
Okay. And does any other properties in that area will be conducive to, basically the same size as your house?
On the street, on our street itself, there's a wide variety of homes built from the 60s to some of the current larger homes that have been redone.
Okay,
So it's kind of a mixed bag on that street itself.
gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Does any of the board members have any questions for the applicant?
Now, this will be a second home for yourself. Is it to use, is the intended purpose to rent this property at any point?
No, not at all.
I have
Mr. Head, okay.
Is this lot on sewer, would it be carrying a septic tank?
That'll be septic. The whole subdivision there is septic.
So by it being in the flood plan and the lot being, I'm kind of wondering how is that going to work?
So, I mean, from the builders that we've spoken to and from the planning, we have a lot of room toward the road for septic area.
So being in front.
Well away from the floodplain on both sides, yeah,
Most of those homes are in the front.
In front, okay.
yeah.
Anybody else have any other board members have any questions for the applicant? Oh, you may be seated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. Okay, I don't see anyone coming up. And then at this time, we'll allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. Okay, I need to ask the applicant to come back up. Does the board have any further questions for the applicant? Okay, all right, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Okay, if we could call the case.
Case number VR-14-11, Lisa and Greg Campbell of Mcdonough, Georgia, request a variance from development regulations for property located at 3456 South Bay Drive in Land Lot 8 of the 6th District. The request is to allow the development of a single-family residence, and it is located in Commission District 5 and was presented by Mr. Tyler McSwain.
Okay, do I have a motion for this case?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance based on staff recommendation.
We have a motion by Mr. Nelson. Do I have a second?
A second.
We have a second by Mr. Head. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, none opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, let's, the next case, please.
Case number VR-14-12, Gerald Taylor of Mcdonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for property located at 365 Kanyes Road in Land Lot 122 of the 7th District. The request is to allow multiple additions. It is located in Commission District 3 and will be presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening.
Good evening, board members. The property is located on Highway 20, and it's a through lot, so it fronts on Highway 20 and also McGarity Road. To the east, the property abuts the Mcdonough Presbyterian Church. The property is zoned RA, and if you'll note the survey in your staff exhibit books, the survey is actually written and drawn out to the standards of an R2, and that's not correct. So for example, where it shows a 50-foot building line at the front, that should be a 75-foot building line for the RA zoning district. Where it shows the 15-foot building line to the side, that should be a 20-foot building line for the RA zoning district. The applicant intends to modify the home and to construct additions to the home, namely a covered porch to the rear, a new detached garage in the rear yard, and also enclose the garage in the front, and to build an addition. It appears to be a bay window in the front. Because the subject property was developed in 1957, which was before the zoning code was adopted in Henry County, it doesn't meet the minimum criteria for the RA zoning district. And so in order to receive a permit to make these modifications and additions, they'll need to come into compliance. Namely, they'll need a variance. And so there are 5 variance requests that the staff has identified. And the first is to reduce the minimum lot area from 1 acre to the existing 0.940 acres. Number 2, to reduce the required minimum lot width from 175 feet to 99 feet to accommodate the existing dimension of the lot. Number 3, to reduce the required minimum front yard setback from 75 feet to 70 feet to accommodate the proposed front addition. Number 4, to reduce the required minimum side yard setback on the east property line for the home from 20 feet to 1 foot, and also for 2 accessory structures in the rear yard on the east property line from the required minimum 10 foot for an accessory structure to 1 foot. And finally, to reduce the required minimum side yard setback on the west property line from 20 feet to 12 feet to accommodate the existing primary structure. The extraordinary and exceptional conditions are that the subject property was developed in 1957 before the adoption of a zoning code in Henry County. The provisions of the chapter would not deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the RA zoning district because the subject property is already developed with a single-family home, which is typical of RA zone properties. Granting the requested variances will impose special privileges that are denied to other properties within the RA zoning district because the applicant is not seeking to develop a vacant lot, but rather the request is to enlarge an existing structure which is otherwise legal, yet non-conforming. The requested variance is to compensate for a dimensional standard in a real property which would prevent the property from complying with development regulations, which is allowed by the variance ordinance. And the requested variances should not impose impacts that will be further injurious to the neighborhood or to the general public. The special circumstances, however, are the results of actions by the applicant as the existing primary structure is legal yet non-conforming at the present time. The variances as requested are not required to make legal the use of the land, but rather the requested variances are the minimum that's necessary to bring the existing structures into compliance, except for the front request to reduce the setback from 75 feet to 70 feet, which could be accomplished with an administrative waiver. The requested variances will not permit a use of land which is not permitted by right in the RA zoning district, and staff recommends approval of all of the requested variances except for the 5th one, the front setback, which can be accomplished administratively.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for staff from the board members at this time? Okay, I'd like the applicant to please come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frank Prince, and I'm agent for Gerald Taylor. I live at 35 Kitty Hawk Drive, Stockbridge. We would like to point out that the house, when it was originally built in '57, the roadway, Kanyes Road, had a lesser right-of-way. If you'll notice on the survey drawing, you'll see we found an iron pin that we think was the original right-of-way for the road. We think it had a 30-foot right-of-way originally, and they've widened the road and taken additional right-of-way, and that's why the house is closer to the right-of-way than it was originally. So that's extenuating circumstances. I think that's the only thing I have to add in addition to what Mr. Jordan has said.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. So do the board members have any questions for the applicant at this time?
I have one question.
Okay, Mr. Nelson?
Yes, I have one question. That the current size of the property is, do we know that?
It's .80, it's on the drawing.
Right, it's here.
.940 acres. It's a little less than 1 acre, .940 acres.
Okay,
yes.
and the square footage of the property itself?
Yeah, it's
I saw the minimum of 1,500 there, but.
40,947 square feet.
And we'll be going to, it's going to increase it? by how
Well,
much?
that won't change. The area of the property won't change.
Okay,
The house,
yes.
the house is like 1,840 square feet, something like that. They're making a bay window on one side. That will not change the square footage. They're proposing to add bathroom area, which is 11 feet by 10 feet, so that's about 110 square feet additional house area. So 1,940 feet, something like that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And the minimum house size in the RA zoning district is 1,500 square feet.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Alexander.
Intended use of the property.
Mr. Taylor buys houses as investment property and then he resells them. And I think he has a buyer for this one. He's renovating it, bringing it up to good standards, and I think he has a buyer to resell it.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
This time, we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. Okay, now we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. Okay, I would like to ask the applicant to please come back. We're starting the new year off with your exercise program.
Well, I need to exercise.
Does the board have any further questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated. Will you please call the case?
Case number VR-14-12, Gerald Taylor of Mcdonough, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for property located at 365 Kanyes Road in Land Lot 122 of the 7th District. The request is to allow multiple additions, and it is located in Commission District 3 and was presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan.
Okay, do you have a motion for this case?
I make a motion to approve the requested variances except for the front setback, which the staff can handle administratively.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Jim Risher. Do I have a second?
Second.
Who did that? Mr. Larry Babb. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion carried. Okay, if we can call the next case.
Case number CU-14-18, Eagles Landing First Baptist Church of Mcdonough, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located on the southeast quadrant of the intersection of Highway 42 North and Brannon Road in Land Lot 1, 2, 31, and 32 of the 7th District. The property consists of 64.689 plus minus acres, and the request is for the expansion of a church and related religious facilities. It is located within the city limits of Stockbridge and will be presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan.
Madam Chair, board members, let me just state at this time that the request before you tonight is a request to make a recommendation to the City Council, and that this item will be presented to the City Council with the Zoning Advisory Board's recommendation. The subject property is located at the corner of Highway 42 and Brannon Road, and it's separated from the existing campus of the Eagles Landing First Baptist Church and Christian Academy by Wolf Creek, which forms the property line. The subject property is comprised of approximately 64 acres. It's zoned C2, which is a general commercial zoning district, and the staff was not able to find any conditions of zoning for the subject property. The applicant has stated that they intend to develop the subject property for church and for accessory church uses. Specifically, they intend to provide access from the existing church campus to Brannon Road, as well as to provide an additional access from Highway 42 north. The subject property is characterized by topography that slopes toward Wolf Creek, which separates the subject property from the existing campus. As far as public facilities, the Henry County Water and Sewage Authority has stated in a letter that water and sewer services are available to the subject property. As far as the transportation access is concerned, Brannon Road is a county road and is under the jurisdiction of the Henry County Department of Transportation, and so access to Brannon Road will have to meet the criteria set forth by Henry County DOT. Highway 42, of course, is under the jurisdiction of the Georgia Department of Transportation, and their requirements will need to be satisfied for an additional access point onto Highway 42. Planning staff is unaware of any binding agreements for specific limitations or conditions between the applicant and the surrounding property owners, and the conditional use with specific limitations and required design features as required within the City of Stockbridge Code of Ordinances should not be unduly detrimental to nearby properties, especially considering the fact that the property is already zoned general commercial with no conditions of zoning. And the staff recommends approval of the applicant's request with 11 conditions.
Can we get you to read those 11 conditions?
Yes, ma'am. Condition number 1, all buildings shall be constructed of brick, stone, stucco, glass, or any combination thereof, allowing a uniform design with the existing church campus. Number 2, any dumpster or dumpsters shall be placed on a concrete pad and enclosed on 3 sides. The enclosure shall be constructed of a material consistent with the structures on the existing church campus and shall be a minimum of 8 feet in height. Number 3, 60 feet of right-of-way from the center line of Highway 42 North is required to be preserved all along the subject property's frontage along Highway 42 North. Number 4, any curb cuts are to be located so that the minimum intersection, sight distance, and spacing requirements are met per the road's posted speed limit as determined by the Henry County Department of Transportation. All curb cuts shall include a deceleration lane and acceleration taper designed and constructed to meet Henry County DOT requirements. Number 5, Georgia DOT requirements shall be used to determine if left turn lanes are warranted along Brannon Road. Should left turn lanes be warranted, the applicant or developer shall design and construct the left turn lane and related improvements to meet Henry County DOT requirements. This may require the acquisition of additional easement or right-of-way by the applicant or developer, as well as possible relocation of utilities. Number 6, should the uses that take access from the curb cuts add daycare facilities, school expansion facilities, or other traffic generators at a later date, the applicant or developer will be required to coordinate with the Henry County DOT at that time regarding designing and constructing left turn lanes to meet Henry County DOT and or Georgia DOT standards as warranted. This may require the acquisition of additional easement or right-of-way by the applicant or developer, as well as possible relocation of utilities. The applicant or developer shall provide inter-parcel automobile and pedestrian access to the existing church campus, which is parcel ID number 070-01-007-012, consisting of a minimum of one travel lane in each direction and at least one 5-foot wide sidewalk providing a continuous connection to an existing roadway and sidewalk respectively before the first certificate of occupancy is issued. Number 8, signage shall be monument-based, limited to 8 feet in height. Number 9, a lighting plan is required to be presented for approval with development plans. Lighting for parking, recreational uses, and otherwise shall be downcast and of moderate brightness. No lighting other than that approved for parking shall be on past 10 p.m. No lighting shall be allowed to illuminate or otherwise glare on any portion of adjacent parcels of land or onto any county or state road. Lighting, screens, or guards, or the discontinuation of the use of the offending lighting may be required to accomplish this provision. Number 10, no outdoor amplification of sound shall be permitted before 10 a.m. and after 10 p.m., provided that no outdoor amplification is allowed to constitute a nuisance. Number 11, notwithstanding anything to the contrary herein, no zoning conditions imposed herein shall be interpreted or applied in such a manner so as to require any violation of any existing building development, stormwater, and any other applicable codes.
Thank you. And for clarification, I didn't hear it, but could you reiterate the city, because they said the address and it said Mcdonough, but this is in.
Right. The address of the subject property is served by the post office in Mcdonough, so they have a Mcdonough address, but the location of the property is indeed within the city limits of Stockbridge.
All right, I just wanted that for clarification. Thank you. Are there any questions from the board members for staff at this time? Mr. Alexander, did you have anything?
Lost my train of thought. I'm very familiar with the area that's surrounding it. I would like to know, is there any feedback at all, positive or negative, from the community?
I spoke with a gentleman who lives in the subdivision behind the subject property, and his lot backs up to the subject property. And he was concerned about noise and lighting. And so I attempted to address that concern in the recommended conditions. Otherwise, I don't recall speaking with any other concerned neighbor of the subject property.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from board members to staff? Okay, I would like to ask the applicant to come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
Madam Chairman, Board, good evening. My name is Tim Luke. I'm the administrative pastor at Eagles Landing First Baptist Church at 2400 Highway 42 North in Mcdonough. I live at 140 McKenzie Court in Stockbridge.
Okay, do you have anything you'd like to add to staff comments?
Yes, ma'am. First, I just wanted to let you guys know that our immediate plan, and only immediate plan, is to build a road connecting our campus to Brannon Road. And our intention for this is to alleviate congestion both on our campus when church lets out, and also on Highway 42, which currently is our only outlet off of our campus. And we have roughly 1,100 parking spaces on our campus, and you know, on an average Sunday, you're going to have 900 to 1,000 cars leaving at one time, and on a really full Sunday, most of those spaces are taken up, and so we've seen backups on our campus that it takes as long as 40 minutes to get off of our campus, and that's even with security deputies helping direct traffic. So the idea is to help our community, and the idea is to help our campus by emptying the area a whole lot more quickly. We want to pave this road and be as minimally invasive to that property as we possibly can. In other words, we are going to strategically place that road in between, throughout the woods there, protecting beautiful trees and making it a beautiful drive along. I do have 3 questions, or questions about 3 different conditions that I'd like to put before the board, and with Mr. Jordan up here. The first one is condition number 1. We have absolutely no problem and plan to build with brick, stone, stucco, glass, or any combination thereof. I would just like to ask what exactly we would be beholden to with the Senate saying allowing a uniform design with the existing church campus. We would like some flexibility to be able to maybe change the look a little bit. And as I said, we're going to be as minimally invasive as possible with any subsequent construction of any building in the future, which we don't have any immediate plans for a building there. We have only immediate plans for a road, but one day, Lord willing, if we do build a church campus there, we would like the flexibility to build maybe a different look, because hopefully you won't even be able to see the church building from Highway 42 or from Brannon Road. It's going to be tucked back in there pretty good, and it's going to be a pretty drive to get to it. That's one thing that I would like to mention. Our building currently that we're in now was built in 1999, and by the time we build any subsequent building, it may be even more dated than, the look may even be more dated than it is now, and we'd just like a little flexibility there. Should I go on with any others? Okay. And then number 7, the requirement for the road is absolutely our intention. That's exactly what we want to do. We would request some flexibility in regards to the sidewalk. Currently, we have no immediate plan for a building, and so the sidewalk would really be kind of a sidewalk to nowhere right now, number 1, and number 2, because it wouldn't be up against Highway 42 where we're planning to put the road. Number 2, we've already been in touch with the Georgia Department of Transportation and the county DOT. We've also learned through that process that this will be a Army Corps of Engineers project, because where we cross Wolf Creek will require more than 100 feet crossing. And so we will have to be permitted through the Georgia Army Corps of Engineers. And therefore, the expanse over Wolf Creek will be plenty wide to add a sidewalk at a later date, if need be. And so, in fact, the road that we're talking about paving is already a wider than normal road, perhaps, 28 feet, something like that. And then finally, number 8, the signage shall be monument-based. That's exactly the kind of sign that we plan to build. We've already been in touch with the Eagles Landing community folks who've been putting up the signs that are all uniform throughout the Eagles Landing community, at the country club, at the villages, at the other subdivisions along Highway 42. We want to build our sign to look like that. We want to fall right in with the Eagles Landing plan. And if we are limited in 8 feet in height, I know those columns are rising higher than 8 feet on those signs. Even though they're monument-based, they have a brick column, and then the sign comes off of that to the side. And so we would like a little flexibility there. And in speaking with Mr. Jordan, we've discovered that the City of Stockbridge requirements for the sign already are at 8 feet anyway, so we're going to have to go before them and get a variance. So we would respectfully request that it be reworded to state that a master sign plan, we will have a master sign plan with the City of Stockbridge, and therefore we'd have to deal with them regarding that sign.
Okay, you have any other comments?
No, ma'am.
Okay. The board, any of the board members have any questions for the applicant? No questions for the applicant? Okay. Then you may be seated. At this time, we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. Do you have anybody that's want to speak in opposition of the case? Okay, will the applicant please come back? I do have one last question if anybody else has one. So the immediate need is to build the road to relieve the congestion of the cars and that already exist. So if there's to be a facility later on, like you said, you kind of want it tucked back so that you can't really see it, and it's for the aesthetics of the times. I'm assuming you're going to allow, parking and that sort of thing there at that location. Will that road accommodate the additional traffic that you will have, for that new, facility? Going off on Brannon Road, will we have the same situation that we have now in 42?
Actually, we believe that the traffic's going to roughly be the same. Any facility that we would build, we don't anticipate it being, our current worship center is 1,851 fixed seats. The plans, very preliminary ideas that we have thrown out for any future building over there call for a worship center in the range of 1,500 seats, and we would just do multiple services if we need to. So the bottom line is we feel like that the traffic is going to be roughly what it is now. We're just simply going to be having another outlet that would, even the amount of cars that we let on Sunday would not bring up Sunday's traffic probably to regular weekday levels on Brannon.
Will this also help, I don't know, because I don't go that way when the school's in session. So is there a lot of traffic there during school, because I know you have that academy. During the school day, is there a lot of traffic there on 42? Will that help relieve that some also?
We certainly anticipate that it will, yes. And yes ma'am, there is a lot of traffic there. And in fact, on Sundays, we have a deputy at Brannon to help. We pay for a deputy to be at Brannon at that light to make the flow go. So we actually believe that this is going to shorten the exodus off of our campus and benefit the community all the way around, both during the weekdays for school and on Sundays for church.
Great. Okay, well, thank you. I just wanted that clarification. Do any other board members have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, post completion of what we're talking about, I guess you had said you already had a deputy right now that's on 42 at Brannon. You'll have deputies at both outlets at this point, or is that the plan? Or?
We have multiple deputies already,
Okay.
and we'll be glad to station them where it's best for us and for the community.
Okay. And the one thing you had some reservations about the sidewalk, I guess that would be in terms of cost, but I guess the whole thing now, I guess, is encouraging walkability in the community. So if the sidewalks did border the road is going toward Brannon, that would have sidewalk. Now there would be new sidewalks going from your campus to Brannon. Would that be correct?
It would be, sir, but the way that we are proposing, the location where we're proposing to put the road is well into the parcel of the land, and it's not really, the road we're proposing is not really anywhere close to Highway 42, so it really wouldn't invite community walk traffic through there. That sidewalk wouldn't. It would be out of the way if you're walking along 42, for instance, and you'd actually be walking through private property. Any walk traffic would be mostly walking back and forth between our campus and the new campus.
And, Madam Chairman, Mr. Alexander, if I may, when we wrote the condition, what we were trying to accomplish is to require that pedestrian facility between the new building and the existing campus. And so we were trying to think of all of these aspects when we wrote before the first certificate of occupancy is issued. So we tried to allow it within the condition that the road could be built first. And then whenever a building was constructed, before that certificate of occupancy is issued, you have to provide the pedestrian connectivity. And also, what I was thinking personally is that when the bridge is built, if you were going to have a pedestrian facility, you may want to go ahead and include it when you build the bridge. Regardless, that was where staff was headed when we drafted the condition.
If I may, again, with just the road going in now and no building over there, we do, our bridge is going to be wide enough to accommodate a sidewalk at a later date once we do get a building over there.
So you wouldn't be opposed to putting in a sidewalk at a later date should you have a building that would go up there? So
Correct.
is there a way that we could, The way that it's worded, I think that's what, that we're looking at. So what you're saying, Stacy, was the fact that you wanted a sidewalk in before the first certificate of occupancy is issued. And I guess the question is, would the applicant be opposed to that statement?
That's fine. That's fine.
That's fine. Does that make more of a clarification as far as the sidewalk? Stacy, was that what you were getting
Yes,
after?
and I might not have written it quite clearly when I said providing a continuous connection to an existing roadway. I mean, that could be Brannon, that could be the existing driveway within the existing campus. So if we need to have more clear language, then perhaps we should say a continuous connection to the existing church campus, if that's what the board intends.
Well, I guess what I was trying to say is, he had no opposition to putting in a sidewalk if they were gonna build a building there.
Right.
And so my question to you was, this sidewalk, the way that it was worded, the way that I read it, did you want the sidewalk now? Would it be acceptable to say, or maybe reword it so that it would say that when, just like before the first certificate of occupancy is issued, if there's a new building, not
Yes, that's
existing
fine.
buildings?
Yes, that's just fine.
Mr. Alexander, does that clarify for you for the sidewalks, or?
That
help?
clarifies the point. Thank
Okay.
you.
So I don't know how we need to reword that. If we need to put the the sidewalk stipulation right there after the comma that says before the first certificate of occupancy is issued. A 5-foot wide sidewalk providing continuous connection. That's what it says. There needs to be maybe a period and then A put there.
Madam Chairman, if I can interject here. Before a certificate of occupancy is issued, that is at a stage where the building is done, almost. It's just they get inspected by the building department, and then
Right.
they can occupy it.
Right.
And so technically, they have until that time to put in the sidewalk. So the way it's written now will facilitate what they are desiring to do.
Okay, so it is written correctly then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, I have one other question in
Mr.
terms of with staff. The construction type, is that, he had some concerns concerning the construction type. Now, is that an existing condition, or what are you actually requiring there?
On number one?
Number
On
one.
number one, it was never the staff's intention to require an outdated-looking building.
Right. So basically, it would be meeting the requirements of a dated building. So that should not be of concern. Am I correct?
Right, and if it causes confusion, then staff has no objection to removing that last phrase.
If I may, the part that confused us was the uniform
Uniform
design.
design.
Right.
Yeah, because what is that?
Yes.
Yeah. To the existing church.
Does that mean match what we've got now? That's what we were wondering.
Yeah, and that's how I read it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Dante.
The uniform design is in essence, the idea of it is the material. So brick, stone, stucco, any combination thereof, that would be uniform, not necessarily a duplicate or a picture-perfect match of what you have there now, just similar material. So if the material advances by the time you get to where you're ready to build, and it's still brick, stone, or stucco, then it fits this condition.
Very good. Thank you.
Does that help answer your question?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
Okay, so if left in there, then we have a clarification of that?
Yes.
Is that, okay?
I just want to say that you all have been a very good neighbor.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
And I'm familiar with the area, so yes, you all have been very good neighbors.
Well, the Lord has blessed us, and we're grateful to be here, and we hope to have a great impact for Christ for many years to come.
So on number 8, you wanted that to read, signage shall be monument-based with a master sign plan developed by the city, or in conjunction with the city of Stockbridge, to look like the Eagles Landing Country Club community signs.
Yes, ma'am.
And Madam Chair, if I may, from the way I understand the applicant's statement, The objection is to the 8 feet in height. So that portion, if I understand the applicant correctly, should not be left in there, but rather,
Oh, yes, I was meaning to strike that, because I
Right.
didn't read that when I read it. That's
Right.
correct. So strike there, but go ahead and put in the master sign plan with the city of Stockbridge.
yes,
You
ma'am.
think that would be necessary?
Yes, ma'am. As you read it, it sounds just fine. I just didn't think that we should keep the 8-foot language in there if that's the
Okay.
objection.
Yeah, right, I was just trying for clarification for anybody making the motion so that we know what to say. Okay, anyone else have any questions for the applicant or staff at this time? Okay, you may be seated. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, if you can call the case?
Case number CU-14-18. Eagles Landing First Baptist Church of Mcdonough, Georgia requests a conditional use for property located on the southeast quadrant of the intersection of Highway 42 North and Brannon Road and Land Lot 1, 2, 31, and 32 of the 7th District. The property consists of 64.689 plus minus acres, and the request is for the expansion of a church and related religious facilities and is located in the city of Stockbridge and was presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan.
Okay, do I have a motion for this case?
Yes, I'd like a motion to approve CU 1418S with the conditions specified and notwithstanding the change that we made.
Okay, do I have I have a motion by Mr. Alexander. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Risher. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Okay, unanimous, motion approved. Okay, thank you. Okay, if we call the last case?
Case number excuse me. Case number CU-14-19-H. TL Phillips Financial Group of Stockbridge, Georgia requests a conditional use for property located at 2 East Main Street in Land Lot 249 of the 6th District. The property consists of 2,411 square feet, and the request is for a ground floor residence in the C2 General Commercial Zoning District. It is located in the city of Hampton, and it will be presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan.
Madam Chair, board members, the subject property is located at the corner of East Main Street in downtown Hampton and James Street. And the rear of the subject property fronts on Cherry Street to the back. It's a 2-story brick downtown commercial building. In the front, at the present time, I believe there is a salon and spa. Upstairs, they have received a conditional use permit from the Hampton City Council on January the 9th of 2007 for no more than 3 apartments. And so the upstairs has been renovated for the residences, and before you tonight, the applicant is requesting a conditional use to allow the construction of a 900 square foot residence on the ground floor fronting on Cherry Street in the back of the subject property. The property is zoned C2, and the staff was not able to find any conditions of zoning. The additional loft is not expected to cause traffic congestion. The loft will require approximately 2 additional parking spaces for the additional residential unit. As a downtown commercial building, it takes up the entire lot and there is no room for off-street parking. However, the requirement for the 2 additional parking spaces is less than what would be required for a typical restaurant or other commercial space such as retail or office in the same 900 square feet. So it is less intensive regarding parking than a typical C2 use. A letter from the City of Hampton states that water and sewer services are provided to the subject property, and current residential and non-residential uses on the site take advantage of nearby on-street and otherwise off-street parking. Staff is not aware of any binding agreements for specific limitations or conditions. However, if approved, the applicant will be required to comply with any zoning conditions placed upon the request by the Hampton City Council. The use of the subject property for an additional residence should not change the character of the area or be unduly detrimental to the subject properties. And let me just say that the future land use of the property and for that area of downtown Hampton is for high-density residential / mixed use between 4 and 8 dwelling units per acre. Technically, the property is comprised of 0.055 acres, and so even one dwelling unit on the property will push them over the 8 dwelling unit per acre policy guide that has been established by the Hampton City Council. The planning staff has taken all of these issues into consideration, and we recommend approval of the requested conditional use with the following 4 conditions. Number 1, the ground floor residential area shall be limited to that 900 square foot area of the site which fronts Cherry Street. The floor plan shall provide fire department access to the fire sprinkler system access outside of the residential unit. Number 3, should the ground floor residential unit become and remain vacant for a period exceeding 6 months, the conditional use permit shall expire. Number 4, notwithstanding anything to the contrary herein, no zoning conditions imposed herein shall be interpreted or applied in such a manner so as to require any violation of any existing building, development, stormwater, or any other applicable codes.
Thank you, Stacy. Do we have any comments, do we have any questions from the board members for staff at this time?
I do.
Okay.
Mr. Jordan, in the future land use plan, you mentioned the acceptable density of, what was it, 4 to 8
Yes, sir.
units per acre? What is the current density in the property? I mean, per acre, if you could equivalent that.
Currently, and it depends on how many residences there are. The conditional use that was approved on January the 9th of 2007 allowed up to 3. And I'm not aware at this time exactly how many residences were developed on the second floor. I know there's at least 1.
But that's well in excess of the future land use plan.
It is.
Density. Okay.
It is. And the future land use designation of high-density residential and mixed use is the city's policy guide, and it should be considered when making this decision.
Yeah. Did you find any documents associated with the conditional use for the second level apartments that put restrictions on the rest of the building?
I do have a copy of the minutes from the Planning Commission and from the City Council meeting on January the 9th of 2007. The approval was just to allow residences on the second floor, and I'm not aware at this time of limitations on the remainder of the building on the ground floor.
Okay. But the C2 zoning does not set restrictions on residential requirements within a commercial building.
The C2 portion of the City of Hampton code, it lists several permitted uses that are allowed just by right. And even with the conditional use, any of these land uses can be approved on the location. Also, within the section of the code, section 67-153 of the City of Hampton Code of Ordinances, letter D is for conditional uses, and there are a host of conditional uses that could be considered by the City Council. The last one, number 9, states upon the approval of the City Council, and so long as all applicable safety rules, regulations, laws, and ordinances are satisfied, commercially zoned structures or any part thereof may be used residentially. So the city council is able to consider and approve the applicant's request for conditional use with appropriate conditions.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay, Mr. Nelson.
Based on the conditional use, excuse me, based on the commercial use, what type of usage can we use at that location now, or what is being used for at the current time?
Currently, it's my understanding that the front of the building on the ground floor that fronts East Main Street is being used for a salon and spa. The back, the 900 square foot area that fronts Cherry Street is currently vacant. And upstairs, there's at least one residence.
So, and I can ask the applicant, but, so I'm assuming that they're just trying to get something in that 900 square feet. They're trying to make that accessible to,
Right.
to be able to rent, since it can't be commercial.
Sure, because East Main Street has very good visibility, State Route 3, but the back, I mean, there's a certain sight distance as you're traveling on East Main Street down James Street, but it just doesn't have the same visibility as the front of the building for commercial purposes.
Okay. So it's just something that's back there that, right, nobody would be able to see unless they knew it was there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, any other comments or questions?
One other quick question. In terms of the parking, let's go back to that. Are you saying that they do not have parking that would accommodate the residents now?
Right, this is the subject property here, and you can see that these are the lot lines, and the building takes up the entire lot. It's 0 lot lines on the rear and the front and both sides, and so there's, as a downtown row building in Hampton, there is absolutely no room for off-street parking. And so there are certain parking spaces within the vicinity of the building, such as these that are listed here on Cherry Street. There are several across James Street against this existing building here. The city of Hampton provides public parking within a walk. So there's no parking for businesses, and there's no parking for residences, and there's just no room. There's no off-street parking on this site because the building takes up the entire lot.
So a question, does the residential code require parking for resident?
The residential code requires 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. And so this is proposed to be a 900 square foot residence with 2 bedrooms, so it would require 2 parking spaces. If you compare that with an office requires 1 parking space per 300 square feet, so it would require 3 parking spaces. So the use as a residence is actually less intensive regarding parking than a commercial use would be.
Well, currently you have the parking for commercial use, am I correct?
There is no room for off-street parking. Even the commercial uses, they have to park either on the street or off-site.
But on commercial use, are they required to be off-street?
No, they're not required to be off-street.
Okay.
If it was, we wouldn't be able to approve any business licenses for this location.
Okay.
It would seem as though what you're saying, there's no parking there. It seems like the entire design is for walkability and a commercial area where people can park a distance away.
Sure.
And frequent the area as pedestrians, not not residents. And the previous conditional changed the upper units, right, to residential. There was, I guess, in the original plan, there was no call for, or was there along the original plan, was there any call for residential, or is that just approved?
for the original plan?
Correct, because the original plan called for second floors, correct?
That's right.
The
That's
second
right.
floor. But it would seem as though the design of the entire area, there is no parking. So it would seem as though the design was to, for commercial, even though they approved residential, the design appears to be for commercial where there was off-site parking where you could be pedestrian friendly and walk the area.
Right, and there is there is on-street parking along East Main Street. Originally, I've been told it was a 12-room hotel with 6 bathrooms. So, I mean, this is a very old downtown building that's being retrofitted to today's standards. And regarding parking, there's just no room for it.
It just seems like today's standard now is walkability and to be able to park off-site. It just does not seem like it calls for, I know it could be, but at the same time, it seems to be, I've been over to Hampton, it seems like that area is, designed, again, to be for people to come down, to walk it, to be friendly. And, I'm not exactly sure if you want a first-floor neighbor, in that commercial quarter, it would concern me.
Right.
Any other questions from board members to staff? If not, I would like the applicant to please come forward.
Good evening. Ted Phillips, 102 Roundtree Court, Stockbridge, Georgia. And I've owned the property since it was the Edna Earl Hotel. It was a 12-room, 6-bath hotel, and had pigeons flying out of it actually when I purchased it. And so we've done some renovating on it, such as Decatur in New York. I would even go as far. I would address the question that you had. There are 6 additional first-floor lofts just adjacent there on Cherry Street. So those are commercials with conditional residential usage. So we're just on the other side of Cherry Street for that same project. So what we're asking for is we have tried to use that property for commercial. We've had delis. We've had a number of other people look at it. It just didn't work. And when I initially designed the building, it was designed for someone to take the entire downstairs and the first floor for commercial, but the hair salon did not need that much square foot, so we did split it in half. And we've been unsuccessful with actually putting something new into that facility for that, other than that 1 year that a deli was in there, which was not successful, unfortunately. But we've been trying and aggressively looking for someone to come in there as a commercial space unsuccessfully.
Okay, do you have any other comments you want to add to the staff's comments, other than what you've already said? Okay.
No, ma'am.
And any board members have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Bailey?
There's 2 doors going to James Street, looks
Yes,
like.
sir.
Do both of these access the new apartment or what?
Yes, sir, they do. When we initially put the deli in, we had to have a wheelchair accessibility and handicap accessibility. So we put the sidewalk down, and where there was a door on James Street, or window on James Street, we converted that into a door. So it would have the handicap access. The back door was the original only entrance into it, but that will stay accessible and will be used as one of the exits for one of the 2 bedrooms that we're proposing.
Yeah. Is there any interconnectivity between this new apartment and the business, or is that walled off?
No, sir. It's a 1940 on one side, 1920 on the other side brick.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bailey.
The units upstairs, are those rented, owned, or what's the?
I own the whole building, yes, sir. Those
You
are
rent out
rented,
those?
and they're not for sale. They have been for sale, where our intention initially was, when we bought the building, is to renovate it and flip it. That didn't happen based on 2008, and I'm very happy about that, so I plan on keeping the building, and they're very nice luxury lofts, granite countertops. We took the heart pine out of the original building and put the wood floors back in. They're very, very high end for Hampton.
That's all I have.
Are any other questions from board members for the applicant?
Yes, I have.
Mr.
Now,
Nelson?
the area downstairs, you mentioned that you removed the window. Do we have windows for the residential area now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
There's windows connecting to the door also, and the door actually is entire glass. And then there's a door in the back, and it has the side windows, and then there's an additional window on the back side as well.
Okay. Now, how do we plan to accommodate for parking for the residents there?
I've owned the building since, like I said, since we first passed this. Parking for a number of residents, you can imagine, being a small unit, is typically a divorced or a first time out or newlywed couples.
Right.
Parking's never really been a problem. Hampton's done a good job making parking out of very, very little space. Even when the deli was there, when they would do their trivia nights and so forth, there never was really a problem, because between with the additional parking nearby and all the parking all the way down East Main Street, then you're not ever more than about a block away from parking.
Okay. I guess my concern is residential is requiring parking, and you don't have parking space for residential, and that individual or your tenant have to go out and purchase parking. Are we within the code on those?
No, so you don't have to purchase it. First of all, it's by the city, and so it's first come, first served basis. But my challenge is since it's commercial, based on the current code, we're supposed to have a parking space per 300 square feet. So this is requiring 2 parking spaces for residential, but as you can see on the pictures, the building, we own none of the land. The city owns all the parking.
So even if it was commercial, you still wouldn't have, I mean, it's not.
We're in violation if it's commercial.
Yeah, even if it's
Correct.
commercial. But there is parking. It's just the city
There's
owns
ample
it.
parking. There's never been a challenge with,
Okay.
It's a little bit give and take sometimes, but there is a lot of parking spaces there.
Well, like Mr. Alexander said, it's a walkable community, so, it's kind of like New York. A lot of people don't even own cars. They just come out of their apartments and they walk to wherever they want to go. So the fact that they do have parking, is nice, that the city allows that, but.
Yes, ma'am.
And there was some concern concerning the sprinkler access or the fire department asset. Can you explain?
Having been a fireman in my first life, and understanding sprinkler systems more than typically the person does, there's not any need to access the sprinkler system and the alarm inside the building. They have total access to the standpipes to where they would hook their 1.5-inch hoses to on the outside. They don't inspect the alarm system. The county doesn't. We have a separate alarm system company that comes in and does the inspections. So even if there was a fire, in which the sprinkler system is on 1st and 2nd floor, there would be no need for a fire department to ever need to access the sprinkler system, because they would simply just go to cut the sprinkler head off. But that would be strictly the alarm. That controls the alarm, and it doesn't have anything to do with the water flow necessarily that the fire department would need access to.
So are you saying that you're not going to provide access to the fire department, or is it there for it or not?
Well, they would need to come into, the rules are, we needed a key in order to enter in any commercial property, and we have that on the back of the building. They can enter into the building, but the fire department does not want a key to a residence. And the resident is where the sprinkler system is, but there is no, even in case, heaven forbid, there was a fire, there would be no need for the fire department to be able to have any reason to access that because the alarm would be going off.
So the question now is that, does a resident have access to that?
Yes.
So if a resident decided to disable that system, they could do so?
No.
Why not?
You know, I guess if somebody, you know, decided to take pliers and cut wires, I guess maybe they could, but why would anybody within reason of residents want to do something like that?
Understand. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, the question that I don't think any of us had the answer to was, I think Mr. Jordan alluded to, there was one unit that he knew that definitely. How many residential units are down there? How many are occupied?
In my building or in
Yeah,
total?
in your building, the building
There's
that we're
20
dis-
adjacent to me that are occupied. That was the old cotton factory over there. There's, I think, 8 over on Cherry Street.
I'm
and
saying
then-
in the building
then
that we're
three,
discussing.
3 upstairs.
So there's 3 residences filled currently right now upstairs.
They, probably in the last 6 years, they've not, any one of them been empty more than a month.
More
They
than a
they
month.
just, they rent and they fill up really, really fast.
Okay. In the grand scope of things, again, we're talking about the parking. And if you're trying to encourage, and one of the things we're trying to encourage is a mix of use, if you do have residents there all the time, how can a business ever be successful? Because if you have these residents there occupying the parking full time, it would be hard to have a mix of use because the parking spaces, though limited, would be occupied a lot because of the parking.
Certainly, but I mean, I would welcome anyone to come in to open a business there within reason. But I believe that most people that want businesses, they try to lean more towards street front businesses to where the higher traffic for visibility. And this is at the very, very back of this building.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
At this time, we were going to open it up for 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. Okay, and how about 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition? All right, I don't see anyone coming up. I'll ask the applicant to please come back to the podium. Excuse me. I have one question for you. Is this already built out, the apartment? Have you already, or you're asking permission for it to be built out? I guess.
Asking permission for it to be built out, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It was a deli.
Okay.
We did go in and do some demo to get the things that the deli had in there out of there, but, and found some interesting ways that they were approved for some electrical stuff. So anyway, but no, we've got a while to get it built out.
So that the deli personnel and the people that were in the deli, they had access to the fire system also. So they possibly could have cut the wires if they wanted to.
Sure.
If it was a commercial business. I'm just trying to, commercial versus residential, everybody has the same potential. Okay, anyone else have any questions or comments for the applicant?
I do have another question now.
Okay.
Is the building totally sprinkled? Is it
Yes, sir.
sprinkled throughout?
So if somebody cut those wires, would that affect the sprinkler system for like upstairs?
It would set off an alarm because there's
sets off.
battery backup on the sprinkler system.
Okay.
And I have to say too, that if you have access to the fire department to that, and it's not under some kind of lock and key, which is really couldn't be based on the sprinkler system, then everyone would have access to it.
Right.
My concern is that if someone tampered with the system, you could actually cause a fire in one location and the other occupants not be notified. That would be my concern in terms of the sprinkler system. The parking doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But the sprinkler system does.
Near impossible, I would think. I mean, anything is possible, but at the same time, we had a deli in there for a year that was serving beer and wine, that all of the persons that were in there, regardless of their level of intoxication, had access to the sprinkler system without incident.
And typically that deli operated on what hours?
I would say until they usually closed at 10 p.m.
Right.
Maybe on weekends, maybe 11.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? You may be seated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we call the case, please.
Case number CU-14-19-H. TL Phillips Financial Group of Stockbridge, Georgia requests a conditional use for property located at 2 East Main Street in Land Lot 249 of the 6th District. The property consists of 2,411 square feet, and the request is for a ground floor residence in the C2 General Commercial Zoning District. It is located in the city of Hampton and was presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan.
For this case,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bailey?
I'd like to make a motion to the City of Hampton that we approve CU 14-9-8 with the recommendations by staff.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by, okay, Mr. Head. Any discussion? Those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And those opposed? We have 2. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. At this time, we're going to have public comment. We'll have 10 minutes of, if anybody wants to have public comment, please come to the podium. I don't see anyone coming up, so I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you. Meeting is adjourned.
Dante said he had taken that out or something. Could he have taken
He
it out?
did, but he put it back.